Hello, everyone, and welcome to another excited community show. This is Veeam 100 Show, episode 15, and we've got another super interesting topic lined up for you today. As always, I am joined by top-notch Veeam experts. Today I have Mate, one of our valued Veeam 100 members, and Andre, one of our amazing technologists from the product strategy team. And I'm joining from Bucharest, Romania, while Mate and Andre are tuning in from Germany. Let us know where are you watching from. Drop your location in the comments. We'd love to know that. Now, Mate, Andre, it's really great to have you both on our, I think this is the first ever Veeam 100 show for you. So welcome. And how about we kick things off with a quick introduction from the two of you? Could you just take a moment to tell us and our audience a bit about yourselves?
Yeah, for sure. My name is Matthias Beller. I'm located in Germany, and I'm working at a system integrator called Advanced Unibyte, and I'm focused on storage and backup projects. And yeah, over to Andre.
Thank you, Matthias. So I'm Andre. I'm with Veeam for last almost 13 years. I'm going to celebrate my anniversary, hopefully in April. I've been to many departments inside of the company, and for the last 7 years, I think I was the part of product strategy team. So yeah, I'm happy to be here. Always any community projects, I know how important they are. I love community. So and we have an interesting topic that's important as well. So let's talk about it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you both for giving a short introduction. And as you said, we have an interesting topic today. So let's dive right into that. And we are going to just explore best practices today for repository benchmarking and discuss how to design backup storage more effectively in the real world scenarios. These are just a few of the super cool things that we are going to discuss today. But before you actually get the mic and talk more about this subject, I just wanted to let our audience know that, if you guys watching us today and have any questions during the presentation related to this topic, feel free to drop them in the comments. Andre and Mate are going to be happy to answer to those. So yeah, let's just go deep dive into this subject. Andre, Mate?
Yeah, I would like to say something.
Okay, go for it.
Yeah, so whenever I learn about this topic, and I know, Mate, I remember you did this presentation a couple of times already for regional user groups. So I never actually heard it in live. But so I was excited because I know, or I knew, I was going to listen to you today. And yeah, I'm very curious about the things because obviously there, like one time you presented in German and I missed it. But really, can you talk to me and to everyone here about this project? Like how did you come up with this idea? What were you aiming to solve? Like, tell us a little bit about the project itself.
Yeah, for sure. That also brings me to my first slide, because the reason for starting this, to be honest, was my colleagues. I got always asked, hey, you are the product specialist for Veeam. What repository storage should we choose? How many disks we need? Which protocol is faster? And something like that. And my problem was I always had a feeling and but no numbers for it. And I always said, better choose this, better double the HDDs or something like that. And at some point, I decided to look at the manufacturer technical report, and the numbers there was a little bit wrong, and there were nearly no performance values. And that was the reason why I started to benchmark the systems myself and try to get better results than in the official technical report.
Okay. Have you consulted with Veeam best practices by any chance? I know we have them.
Yes, I have. I looked there for example, the task adjustment, proxy recommendations, and something like that. But my first starting point was the NetApp document because there my idea was I have a NetApp specific storage I want to use as repository, but how do you know how fast the system is? I wasn't sure. And so that was my first point for researching. And that's the reason why I started there. But yeah, the information was not that good.
Okay. Well, I guess we can continue and kind of get to know the methodology that you used, the questions that you had, or probably, I don't know, the hardware that you had as well. What was the Veeam version that you used, by the way?
It was 12.1.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very important.
Yeah, for sure. Let's have a look at the hardware. So here you can see some pictures from our lab in Germany. And for better understanding, I also can display what it is. So the idea was to have a real good performing source storage because I want to test the repository and it shouldn't be the bottleneck. And in the middle, you can see the storage itself. So the idea was to use different HDD setups as destination. And on the right side, you can see my ESX picture from the hosts, from proxies, repositories, and something like that. And for better understanding, I have this one here. And here also you can see that it was Veeam version 12.1. And here you can see the setup. So the idea was to compare different protocols. In my case, for example, SAS and Fiber Channel for connecting the storage to the hardened Linux repository, and also play with the number of drives, the RAID levels, and something like that. So in this setup on the right side, you can see the different hardware which was present there and which I used to test. Yeah. All the testing, was a little bit overkill because during the testing, I got a lot of ideas and it killed my time plan because it took a lot of time.
Like the way I'm seeing those slides right now is probably our audience wouldn't see a thing, but can you can you tell us a little bit more about the performance over disks and basically the things that I'm seeing? This is the Excel spreadsheet, but what exactly are there, and is there interesting surprises that like you have after you run those tests?
Yeah, to be honest, the biggest surprise was the time you need for setting all this up. So this was my biggest surprise for the base config. And I think I took about 2 days until I started my first backup job for setting all this up. So that was a hard part. Regarding the tests, it was really a surprise how much impact different rates or the number of LUNs affect the performance. And in this Excel spreadsheet, I just noted how much disk I used, which protocol I used for this, and what was the time and the speed for the backup job. So.
And what was the workload that you were trying to protect? Just talk to me overall. Do you remember the size of this? Was it like one virtual machine or like multiple?
Yeah, perfect question.
Yeah.
I skipped this before. The source were 16 virtual machines, with each virtual machine about 50 gigabyte used, and it was generated random data to avoid some caching on storage systems and something like that. So the source for all the tests were 16 virtual machines.
Okay.
Yeah, perfect. Then I think I will dive directly into the setup. The first setup was very, very small. It was with 12 disks. And my first idea was to find out if 1, 2 LUNs, more than 2 doesn't make sense with only 12 disks, have any difference, and also try to compare the file systems. So I compared ReFS versus XFS on a Linux host. And as you can see, they are really close to each other. I have some results here. So the difference between 1 and 2 LUNs is really small. It's clear the 12 disks are the limit here. and there's no difference between the connection protocols because SAS and Fiber Channel can deliver this bandwidth. But an interesting point, XFS was always a little bit slower than ReFS. That's not what I expected. But with 12 disks in this dynamic disk pool, keep that in mind for the later slides. It's important.
Okay, that's very interesting because I would expect otherwise, right? We would always assume that XFS should be a bit faster because of the
or the same,
flares.
Or the same.
Yeah.
But you see bigger difference later. Yeah. The second thing I tested here was, okay, let's take 12, 24, 30, and 60 disks, and let's look how the scaling with the number of disks is. So what we can see here from 12 to 30 disks, with only 1 or 2 LUNs, there's nearly no speed improvement. That's also not what I expected because I often told my colleagues, it's better to take 24 disks than 12, it's faster. But yeah, it wasn't. If you have more disks like 60, it's one shelf in the system, you get a little bit of speed improvement, but not so much how I expected. So for me, as a result, with only one LUN, there is really no speed improvement with more disks. So it's an important factor because after this, I decided to test with more LUNs because disk doesn't bring that performance boost here. But the scaling with multiple LUNs worked. I tested maximum of 8 LUNs because for the backup use case in a repository, it's always better to have less LUNs because in Veeam, every LUN is getting a repository and a scale out. And yeah, you don't want to have that much objects there. The next slide, let's say, going to my colleagues who also likes iSCSI. In the practice, I normally try not to use iSCSI in the context of Veeam hardened repositories. I decided to compare the iSCSI versus Fiber Channel. It was a simple network setup with no jumbo frames. And I noticed, okay, if you have enough bandwidth in the setup, which was available at my side, there's no difference between iSCSI and Fiber Channel. Why my recommendation is don't use iSCSI? It's because in a normal setup, maybe you have less network bandwidth, maybe only 10 gigabit, and you need this bandwidth for your Veeam data movers. So for sending and receiving data between Veeam components. So my advice would be not to use much network traffic if you don't need it, or use a dedicated iSCSI storage network or something like that. An additional point, I think iSCSI in a hardened repository, yeah, it's working. You can attach iSCSI storage to a Linux host, but it's maybe painful. And I think every direct attached topology is more secure and bulletproof here. As I said before, the next idea was to scale with the number of LUNs. So I took always 60 disks. You can see this in the chart. And I scaled with the LUNs. And yes, it's getting faster. It's the same system than before. And you can see 4 to 8 LUNs, the difference is small. What you can see here, remember the test before, XFS is always faster. On the starting slide, it was the opposite. ReFS was always faster. So for me, a crazy point, with more disks in your RAID, which Veeam or the operating system doesn't see, the behavior is switched. So here in this case, with more disks, XFS is always faster. So that wasn't a fault in measuring or something like that. It was constant during all tests. But yeah, I was surprising about this. And keep in mind, as I said, with 12 disks, that was not the case. ReFS was faster there. In general, when you see the screenshot, I would not recommend to have this much extent. Take as few extents as possible there because you don't want to manage your backup jobs to all the repositories. You get other problems there. When I nearly finished my tests, I decided to look at a technical report for the storage system itself. So not for the technical report for Veeam, so for the technical report for the storage system itself. And I saw, okay, they are testing different things. So what they made is they don't create one RAID with 60 disks inside. This is what I do. And they decided to create 4 small RAIDs, each with 15 disks. And on each RAID, they put one LUN. So in the effect, I have also 4 LUNs present to my Veeam servers. And yeah, I decided, okay, let's change my setup. I will give it a try. And I was really wondering how much this is boosting my performance there, because you see the value there with nearly 3.2 gig on a second. That's really close to the maximum of 3.7 gigabytes a second, what's on the data sheet for this entry storage system. So I think it's a really good, let's say, real world value. Fun fact, now think a little bit about it. Now ReFS is again faster. Why? Because you have 4 RAIDs with 15 disks. So the effect is again here with smaller RAIDs with fewer disks in it. ReFS seems to be a little bit faster than XFS. So now the challenge for later, how can you get the maximum performance without having, let's say, 10x10s in Veeam, because you have to manage it? I will cover this later.
Let me just help you right here, because I think, like, well, obviously you presented a lot, and I just wanted to ask you, here we go. The lessons, kind of the recommendations that you have for our audience, whether they're doing something similar and they want to maximize and boost performance. So it's part of the question, but the other part is related to, the proxies and repositories, and basically the Veeam, Veeam component scenarios. So what would you recommend? What would be the optimal ratio? And how do you see those, like the number of those components would impact the overall performance? What do you think?
Yeah, to be honest, it was a little bit of trial and error, but it's important to have matching repository to proxy task slots so that you don't have a bottleneck everywhere. And what I realized, multiple proxies are better than one very, very big one, because of you get more parallelism in it. It has its own CPU, RAM, you have more TCP sessions, and you need more TCP sessions to saturate bigger network interfaces. You don't have problems with network load balancing and so on. That was one important lesson I got out of this test. Also, strict placement in a scale-out repository is always a good idea, so that you don't break your fast block cloning here. And if you have to decide which server needs the bigger network interface, I would always go for the proxy server, because it needs the most important or performant network interface, because normally you see some reduction 2-to-1 or more, and only the half of the bandwidth is going out to the repository. So the proxy is the component you need the performance. And only for benchmarking, so it's not a real lessons learned, I disabled every data efficiency mechanisms in Veeam, because I want to have the maximum throughput on my destination.
When you say that you disable those, are you talking about compression, dedupe, those things? Okay.
Yeah, for sure. Because normally when you watch the line here on the next slide, you see a red and a green line. So you need to see what Veeam is reading from the source and what will be transferred to the destination. And it was in my interest not to reduce anything, because I want a maximal throughput on the destination. That was the reason why I removed this efficiency options.
Okay. Can I ask you one more thing? Do you have any number? I'm talking still about the proxies and repositories. Something that you would recommend, kind of like how many proxies should they have for one repository? And if I'm talking about one repository, I think it's the part of the scale-out repository, right? That you tested, right?
In my case, when you remember the picture before, I had 2 proxies and I needed it, because I wasn't able to get all the performance with one proxy. So I think a proxy is always a good idea to have it 3, 2, depends on the environment. But I noticed in some projects at customer sites, if you have more than one big proxy, even if it's a big CPU and network interface, buy 2 or 3 small ones, then one big one.
I think that also aligns with best recommendations we've had for years. So it's always better to have multiple smaller proxies rather than one huge, big, giant proxy that would handle the tasks. Yeah.
Okay. Then short information on this slide. My idea was to get the maximum speed on destination. So I decided to use the storage integration in Veeam to get the maximum throughput at one time. Because if you don't use storage integration, Veeam is doing it intelligent for normal workloads in customer environments. VM's getting backup step by step, and you never got the full burst on the repository. With the small VMs, the problem was the first backups were finished when the last backup started, so I never got the full backup stream on my destination. That was the reason why I chose to go with storage integration at this time, and I opened all limits, no limitations for number of VMs per snapshot and something like that to get the maximum throughput. That's maybe not what you want to do in production, but for benchmarking, it was the right way.
Okay. And can you comment on the net? Okay, and the networking is here. Yeah, because this is logical. What you would recommend towards the networking as well?
Yeah, that was my biggest problem, to be honest. When I started the project, the environment wasn't performing, and I was searching and searching with my network colleagues, and we doesn't find a solution. And my main problem was the NIC teaming in Windows. So my proxies were Windows proxies, and it was simply connected with 2 ports, 25 gigabit LSCP, and tagged with VLANs. And I was limited about 1.5 gigabit, something like that. I didn't get more throughput there, regardless what I'm testing. And the reason for doing this was simply, I want to tag VLANs. I don't need the teaming manager. The only idea was, okay, it's an easy way to tag VLANs there. Okay, when I go once further, I said, okay, I don't need the LSCP channel there. Let's use a single network interface. But for VLAN tagging, because my setup was with VLAN tagging in the network there, I configured single network ports, but still with the network manager and VLAN tagging. And the problem was the speed was nearly the same. You see, it's really equal because the environment was really balanced there. But the problem was the speed was the same. After this, I decided, okay, I kill my setup. I go without VLAN tagging, and I removed the teaming manager there. And in the end, I don't have redundancy with LSCP. You can do it in other ways. But as you can see, one single port is now nearly completely used. So I think if you saturate a 25 gigabit port with 23 gigabits, it's nearly saturated. And my learning was Windows Teaming Manager can be painful because it reduces performance, and that's also what I see at customer sites. So if you ever test, please test if this is your bottleneck.
Okay, so what about Linux proxies though? The way how I see it, you've been testing on Windows, but at the same time you had XFS. So like, are you thinking about testing Linux, or is it something that I'm missing?
Yeah, in this setup, because it's some months ago, I didn't test any Linux proxies because, it would be another 2 days for all these tests. But I definitely planning. I already had played around with this in our lab, but I don't have results today. Let's say in some weeks I will have something.
Yeah, it would be nice because obviously I'm also interested in hearing the typical question, Linux versus Windows. Because I would expect that Linux should be better, but well, you have
from my expectation, I think bonding is a default mechanism in Linux. I think it should work, but we will see.
Yeah, and are you also planning to test the kind of the scenario Linux plus XFS and Windows plus VFS? I mean, what would be the kind of full Windows versus full Linux? You can do that as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Is there anything else that you would like to share, like regarding to the tests that you had?
Not to the network part, more to the storage part, because I think there's the most potential to optimize some things. And it's all about LVM there. So my idea was how to reduce the number of LUNs or repositories in Veeam. And I decided to go with LVM to put all LUNs together. And when I do this, I learned when you put all LUNs together in a default LVM, it isn't getting faster because default LVM is linear and each LUNs gets filled up and then it takes the next. And then when it's full, it takes the next. So you always get maximum speed of one LUN. So it wasn't the result I want to have because it was slower then. And then I played around with LVM striping. And in this example here, you can see if each LUN is providing 250 megabytes a second, you get as a result 1 gigabyte a second. And that's what I really measured in customer environments or in our lab. And so I think a golden way for me is if you use Linux repositories, think about LVM.
Okay. So I know we are going to the finish of the session. Maybe we should skip a couple of slides and just talk about the overall takeaways that our audience can take with them from today. So what would you recommend, like ultimate recommendations from Matthias?
Ultimate, then I skip to the ultimate recommendation. Networking is critical. I would say that's one of my most important hints. Use as fast as interface in a single interface as possible. And if you focus performance, using LVM is a good idea. So grab more devices and put them together in LVM. And this can be used with external SUN storages or with internal RAIDs. It's possible. And if you create LVMs and your environment is bigger, I would not recommend to go over 500 terabyte or something like that. That's not a hard limit, but it also aligns with the best practice guide. But think about this. LVM and LVM striping makes expansions more complicated. It's maybe some failure point at something. And if you use striping, all the storage members should be identical. So don't mix and match 10 disks with another 100 disks to stripe data over it. It will not work very good.
Okay. Well, I hope audience took something as an advice for their own environments, and they can they're going to use it. So I know we've been talking already about a couple of ideas that you might need to test, for example, Linux proxies and things like that. But is there anything else you're planning for the future? Tell us about the project 2.0.
Yeah.
What else would you like to do with it?
So Linux proxies are on top of the list. So I will do this. My idea is also to play a little bit around with LVM in case of customers expanding storage after 2 years. What scenarios are there from the expansion point of view? You can choose the stripe size when you make an LVM striping. I will also look at this in case of performance, and because these practical tests are consume so much time, my idea is to make more synthetic tests with FIO. So that's my plan for the next time.
All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing this information. I hope that, I know we had a couple of comments, I saw it somewhere. So yeah, I think people appreciate what you've been doing. And obviously, as always, it really depends on the stand that you have, on the hardware set, and the methodology. So some of it for sure would be kind of universal recommendations, but then take it with a grain of salt and always check what you are trying to do and what your environment is and what the bottlenecks are. But I really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Andrei.
Guys, fantastic discussion in here, fantastic topic, Mate. And I do recall when you first published the technical report at the Community Hub, it really grabbed the community's attention, and you've come a long way since then from what I've seen in your slides. Too bad we didn't have time to go over all the slides and all the project. But I can see there are developments coming in the future. So I suggest we invite you again. like since there's going to be more to it and there's going to be more discussions. What do you think?
Yeah, for sure.
Should we do a 2.0?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, great stuff. And, before we actually wrap up this show, we still have a couple of minutes. I have one more question for both of you, because I usually get this question, how someone can join the Veeam 100 program. Andre, you've been with Veeam for such a long time. You've been involved in the community as well. So I want to take your opinion as well. But first, I'm going to go to Matze. What advice would you offer to those interested in becoming part of it in the Veeam 100?
Yeah, if somebody's asking me this question, I always say you are more like an influencer for a backup product. So that's in my environment the best sentence to describe it. If you want to join the program, I think you need to be active in the community, in the forums or something like that. And I think one big point is to create a brand about your person, maybe blog something. And I think a very important point is to share your knowledge and work together with others to create good content.
Definitely like your answer. Thank you, Matze. And now I'm curious on Andre's answer.
Yeah, I think what Matthias said is right. Is like you have to share the knowledge and you have to go to do the blogging or like vlogging or basically being present. But I think the most important part, which wasn't mentioned here, you have to be a fan of Veeam. You have to be a fan of what we do and what we like create and how we do it. So if you're passionate about this company and our software products, and it's not just passionate and you're inside of your home and you share it with your family, but if you're passionate and then you think you could share your passion with community, with people around you, with your colleagues or partners, or basically anyone that you talk to about AT. I think this is the key. And then, definitely come to the community, talk to us, and share your passion. And we'll be really happy to have you over there.
Thank you for that. Yes, I think your answer is kind of complementing Matze's answer, so that's fantastic. And thank you both, Matze and Andre, for being guests to the Veeam 100 show, episode 15. And I would like to hear any final thoughts that you would like to share with the audience, with the people that are watching us today.
I would be happy if I have the same amount of listeners on the second episode.
Absolutely, I'm sure we have to have more.
I'm just genuinely happy. Anytime I need to talk about Veeam, I think, I have passion, and that's one of the reasons why I'm staying with the company for the last 13 years. I think, we've got much more, and knowing that, obviously we have huge plans for 2025. So I'm very excited on a personal level.
Okay, thank you then once again, and a big thanks to everyone for tuning in today. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and don't forget, we'll see you in April with a brand new episode of the Veeam 100 show.